Hi everyone. I went to SoCal Open this weekend and I went 5-1. Orks are good right now. I had a great time. I filled this graphic with every aspect of Southern California culture. If anyone's wondering why there's a picture of a dog surfboarding in the Sublime logo, that's why. We've got Mazrog Sragbad, the Beast Boss, Captain Badrek, Nob Smash the Squig with Edwap's Kill Choppa, a War Boss, 10 Beast Nagaboys, 3 trucks, 10 flash kits, 20 grots, 2 squads of 10, 10 knobs of power claws, 3 squig hogs, another squad of 3 squig hogs, a squad of 6 squig hogs, 2 units of 5 storm boys, and 2 units of 3 war bikes. So the last time I made a video was pre-data slate, and post-data slate, the game has changed a lot. I feel like the lethality of the game as a whole is like actually down quite a bit. And the game faction-wise is like really balanced right now, which is cool, but creates a weird issue in that I feel like typically for most of like 40k's history, you can just be like, these are like usually like the 3 armies you have to watch out for in the game, and they're like very meta right now, and your list, if you want to do well, has to be able to deal with them in some way. I don't feel like you can do that now. There's like so many matchups that I thought I could run into, and I could not think of anything that could deal with all of them. I think this like comes closest. The matchup I did lose, I feel like was just due to like a very like stupid error on my part. And it's not a bad matchup at all. It was into World Leaders, and it's like the matchup that I thought would be like easier going in. World Leaders like not a bad matchup for Orks at all. But I just like misplayed it slightly due to something like very silly, which I'll go over later. There's some matchups where you can't do the normal game plan of just like tabling people. So the first thing I look for is like, can I win just by like killing them all and like scoring as much as I can along the way? And if the answer is yes, then you can usually just like run in the straight line more or less, or like a zigzag or something, and charge them, and then your grots, storm boys, and war bikes hang out in the back along with the trucks once they're empty, and they just score you points and do secondaries while your opponent spends the whole game trying to deal with all the squigs that are at their front door. If you can just do that, just do that. Like, always look for that first, and then you might run into something like the Space Marine Dreadnought build people are doing with like the triple Redemptors, 2 of the Ballistas, and a couple like Lancers or whatever. And that's one where I don't think you can just like run at them and win. You have to like try and outscore them. And the biggest advantage you have that game is that you have like more scoring units. All they're going to have is like probably 2 units of scouts and 2 units of infiltrators or something. And if you can get rid of those, then they just have like dreadnoughts that you try and box in as far away from your scoring units as much as possible. And like you want to try and outscore them early on so that even if they table you at the end, they're not going to catch them on points. Another one that's kind of weird is like Chaos. If Chaos outweights the Wog and is able to make your like Wog unimpactful, it becomes like sort of hard to kill them. They also have a lot of like transports with like Chosen and stuff. Forge Fiends are like not great for Squig Hogs and like will just like actually pick up a unit sometimes, even with the -1/2 wound. Or if you have 2 units of 6, this list doesn't, but if you do, then you can only -1 one of them, right? So they'll pick up the other one. That's like something that requires a little more finesse and thought, but yeah, if you can't do that, then just run at. If you don't need to put yourself in a situation where you're trying to get like cute with like move blocking and playing 4D chess, then you just run at them and it's fine. This list has a lot more killing pressure than my previous like just score list, which I think is like still fine, but I think it's like kind of boring. It was fun at first, but I've like played it so many times. In my previous list, for reference, if you haven't seen other videos I've made, is like 6 trucks with 60 boys and even more storm boys, even more war bikes. It's just like maximum MSU with like very little killing power. So this takes out some of that and then fills it with like the flash kits are back. There's more squig hogs. I've got a Smash the Squig Knob with Edwap's Kill Choppa. I would call this like a balance list, which I think is like the best way to play them right now. The things I might change is including an extra 10 knobs. I really feel like the lack of AP in this list hurts. There's just like a lot of Armor of Contempt equivalents in the game right now. Like Void Armor for Votan, Grey Knights have one, I don't know what it's called. No one does. And then there's actual Armor of Contempt are like the 3 most relevant ones that come to mind immediately, but I'm sure there's some others I'm forgetting. And yeah, a lot of those are affecting units with like a 2-up save. Like even Mazrog only has AP1, and the Squig has Dev Wounds and AP2, and you're trying to fish for Dev Wounds obviously when you charge with it, and that's great, but it's only scoring a critical hit on a 5-up. So like the chance that Mazrog kills like, I don't know, like a Land Raider with Armor of Contempt or a Land Fortress is like not good off the bat. He'll usually like bring them down to like pretty low wounds, but not outright kill them. If they have Armor of Contempt, he'll like probably do like maybe actually no damage. That feels bad. Yeah, I wouldn't mind some more knobs or something with like a little more killing power. I really like the Beast Boss still, but at 100 points, he's a bit expensive. I might drop him in the future. The Flash Gits and Captain Badrick were like immensely useful for me. Another really great thing is just the Squig Hog's bombs. The bomb squigs can like spike and do most of the wounds to Redemptor sometimes. They're good for killing screens too. They're good for killing characters that are like just out of view, like Calidus Assassins. I'll try and target with them a lot. And I think the reason why those units stand out is because they are units that don't play the like core melee game of your army. I think they're a lot better in player place terrain. I think they're not quite as good on like the GW layout or especially WTC. And the reason for that is for player place terrain, you're like defining the board how you want, and your opponent is defining the board how they want. And if you tell your opponent, oh, I don't have any shooting, then the only thing they have to worry about for terrain is being able to shoot you, because they know you're probably going to run into their face at some point. And then the other thing they're worried about is like move blocking your units, because they have like a lot of squig hogs and stuff that can't go through walls. But if you introduce the flash gits, there's a whole nother layer of thought that has to go into finding their like terrain, which is, oh, I can actually get shot, and these like might just pick up like a vital unit at a really inconvenient time. And that's why I like them. They make your opponent like play in a weird way. I'm gonna repeat a lot of the stuff that I went over in this video, but I was actually on Art of War Down Under a couple days ago, and I'll put a link to that video if you want a like slightly broader breakdown of orcs and how I feel about them right now. It's me and Lucas Trawler is a really great orc player too. He's great, Adam's great, and if you want like a really long conversation that goes over stuff in like broad strokes, then feel free to check out that. And for this, I'm just going to go into like very specific competitive orc stuff, because I feel like there's a lot of content covering like broad orc stuff and like what units are best or whatever already. Other things I've added since Palm Springs opened a few months ago, Vanop of Smash the Squig has Edwap's Kill Choppa now. It's great. It should have always been there. Probably should have always included this guy. He's so good. Even with like knights being less of a problem, there's still like so many vehicles around in the game in general, and just being able to like guarantee or almost guarantee like doing like 6 to 8 wounds to any vehicle you charge on the walk turn with dev wounds is like really, really strong. All right, I'm gonna go over the games that I played now, and if you have any questions about the list or how it works that I don't cover there, feel free to leave a comment down below too. I'll try to respond. I'm just gonna go over the missions that we played and deployments real quick. I feel like that's a really important element of 40k that people sort of gloss over in these breakdown videos sometimes. So the first game was into Tyranids on Dawn of War. Dawn of War is great for orcs, and Tyranids are a fine matchup from my understanding so far. I would call it a good matchup pre-Data Slate. Post-Codex, I've only played it a couple times, but it feels like sort of okay. They have the Norn Emissaries now, which aren't that hard for you to deal with. Even with their like big old funeral pain, they're still just like a monster sitting on objective that Squig Hogs will eventually kill. So I really don't hate the Tyranid matchup. So game 2 is actually into somebody that I play against all the time. He's like someone that just goes to like RTTs near us. It was very funny to travel this far to see the person I always play game 2 of every tournament. It wasn't to Eldar. His list was like, it was a Yinkarn, like a big Wraithguard brick. I think he had 2 Night Spinners. Yeah, Warp Spiders. It was like pretty standard stuff. I don't think he had Shadow Specters, but I can't remember now. Yeah, like some Warwalkers, obviously. Pretty standard Eldar meta list, I would say. He wasn't running the Avatar, which I think is the stronger pick right now. I like him more than the Incarn. But yeah, it was definitely like a reasonable Eldar list. And I think Eldar are now a good matchup for orcs, which is very funny too. I think even with like triple Shadow Weaver, like Squig Hogs ignore movement modifiers, so yeah, they're actually not or Night Spinner, sorry. The Night Spinners like are not insane into orcs because Squig Hogs ignore the penalty. And the other thing they're probably shooting is transports. Like if they manage to kill a transport and shoot like Vanobs inside or whatever, it's a problem. But you probably still have other threats that they're gonna have to deal with, like the Squig Hogs and Mazrog and stuff. So so. I mean, Mazrog's probably the best target for the Night Spinners. I really just don't think Eldar are like a bad matchup at all for Orks right now. And then game 3 is into Chaos Knights, who are an incredible matchup for us. I really, really like playing the Chaos Knights. It's like typically an easy game. Yeah, they're like a strong faction, but we just have so much like anti-vehicle keyword. And from my findings, they like typically can't quite kill enough on turns 1 and 2 if they're brigands. And you can either just like run into them if they're like on objectives at all. In this game, for instance, there wasn't any terrain in the middle, but there was like a big wall here. I like moved up some squig hogs deliberately within 1 inch of the wall, and he was running a rampager, which charged them, but got a really good charge. And had to actually come like closer around the wall to base them. Problem I have with 10th edition is that in the charge phase, if you roll really high, you have to base your opponent in combat. So we couldn't just simply like end his move here and the other side of the wall like relatively protected. Because I had like a bunch of units like over here, I think. He had to like come all the way around. Just made my charge the next turn like so easy. Chaos Knight's not a bad matchup at all. Game 4 was into World Leaders, which is my one loss. I'll go over that in a minute. Again, World Leaders not a bad matchup for Orks at all. I just like made a misplay. Game 5 was into Chaos Knights again and also went great. I think this opponent played it a little bit better. He was like very cagey, and then like moved his knights like super far back, which is what you want. At some point he realized he was going to like lose on primary and freaked out and started moving them forward. And I hadn't wogged yet. I didn't wog until turn 3 of this game. And I was really just trying to like keep him doing nothing for as long as possible. And I mean, he was like killing squig hogs and stuff. He was like killing whatever he could see. But I was trying to make sure like my big threats like Mazrog wouldn't get hurt. And yeah, just like focusing on keeping his score down. I feel like people will usually get impatient and then just like go full tilt like a little too early and get really aggressive because they're like scared of not scoring enough points early on. That's typically a mistake, which will let you just like have a good wog turn into them. And now not only do they not have points, but they're also tabled. And then game 6 was into Necrons. Yeah, he played it really well. I like this opponent a lot. His list was really good too. I feel like he just got like atrocious luck with his shooting with the Locust Heavy Destroyers, and he was also running 3 of the big, like, I forget what they're called right now. They're awesome. The Canoptic like Doom Stalkers. They seem solid. Like they were like pretty good. And yeah, he just got some like bad rolls. I also got to go first, which is good. And then the twist for this mission was no center objective, which Orks love too. So I was able to hold 1, 2, and 3 the whole game, and he was just like stuck back here. His Lich Guard, which are like his big primary scoring tool, got boxed in by Stormboys turn 1. I didn't charge them. I just charged Scarabs that were in front of them, like screening. And after I killed the Scarabs, the Stormboys ended their turn like 1.1 inches away from the Lich Guard, which made him like not able to move over to his objective the whole game. Because like that turn he couldn't move at all. And then the next turn I think Knobs or Beast Nagus came in and did the same thing. My only goal is to just keep the Lich Guard irrelevant as long as possible. And he was not running a Veil of Darkness, so he couldn't teleport anywhere. Another huge problem in that game was the Catan Shard. That unit was like so scary, and I was able to get around that just by like charging it with flash kits and making it so it couldn't really do anything. It teleports around the board, but it can't teleport if it makes a fallback move. So my goal is just to always like keep it trapped. Turn 1, he like moved it over here for behind and like teleport home or something. I forget what, but he got like 8 points off it over here, which was probably the right move. But I had flash kits and a truck here, and they moved over here and charged it. And their whole job that game was just to keep him in this corner because he couldn't quite do enough damage to like leave. And I think his goal initially was to like score 8 points that turn and then move over here. And I had Grotz here. And we were doing the mission where you get a ton of extra points if you control your opponent's objective. So I think he was like trying to set that up. And I think he thought I would like still push the flash kits and like truck forward to deal with his like actual like damage threats over here. But I really wanted to keep his points down because I knew that if I had like 1, 2, and 3 for even just like 3 turns, there's probably nothing he could do in terms of point scoring. So the flash kits didn't kill anything like the whole game, but they were able to stop a very inconvenient Catan Shard, and I think that was the best case for them. He was a great opponent, and that was a really good game. So I'll go over some pictures and go over the games a little bit more in detail now, but yeah, those are the missions and like a broad strokes breakdown. Yeah, so here's some photos from game 1. My opponent was like pretty new. I mean, I think he played it like okay, but the big mistake he made, this guy, Venoran Emissary, she was, I don't know tiered genders. This model was originally over here. I think he's used to every game just being like, it has OC 15 and the Feel No Pain, and it's just gonna sit here and nothing could possibly shift it. And turn one, I mean, I didn't walk, I went second. I really missed walk sort of player turn. If I had seen a turn one, I absolutely would have walked. These guys were like here already. I think this is my turn too. And yeah, the Norn Emissary moved up here. Mazarek was still able to get a charge off just because it was Dawn of War, and he was like right here, and then moved 10 inches up like to like, here or whatever. The Norn was here, and he got like a 7 or whatever he needed to get in. These guys might have also even gotten in combat turn 1. I might have kept them, I'm not sure. But yeah, he just got too aggressive with the Norn Emissary. That's like all there really is to say about it. I feel like people have a hard time assessing like orc damage output sometimes, and are just not used to playing against such like an aggressive army with the capacity to like really hurt their big units that they're not used to having hurt. This is game 2 into Eldar. At this point, it's like pretty late in the game. It's just like Fuegan here. The Wraith Guard lived for the mass majority of the game. I decided there like wasn't enough I could really put into them to like kill them like super effectively and easily. And I mean, he was pretty good at like move blocking stuff. Like this pass is like a great place to stop Squig Hogs, right? So he had like I think a Warwalker like here, just because he knew I'd have to go either this way or that way. To which like the Wraith Guard like were kind of set up here like defensively to move block, I think. And then he just kind of let me like go over here, but he didn't have any units there, so he wasn't worried about like trading pieces. I just sort of like wanted to leave the Wraith Guard alone because there's a lot of obscuring in this board. Like they only shoot 18 inches. And it was hard for him to get a good sight angle on most stuff. So, yeah, I was able to just kind of like ignore them or give them like not useful targets. And then at some point I charged them with Captain Badrick. I think all the Flash Gets were dead, but Badrick was alive, and he used Epic Challenge to kill the Spirit Seer, which is great. Units like this, units like a Cursed Cultist, anything that has a character that gives a unit like an insane ability. Orcs have so many characters. Epic Challenge is a really good strat. If you don't know, Epic Challenge just lets you target a character with like precision. So one of your characters now has precision, and they can make all their attacks into the enemy character. And with Orcs, at least, you usually kill them because it's typically something you want to do to like target a like relatively squishy character if it's an undurable unit. Great stratagem. It's Necrons too, like the 5-up Penal Pain that they get from that like character. You can target him and get rid of him. My Necron opponent round 6 was like really smart. It actually kept his character like out of line of sight behind like a crate, I think, and been like zoned out. Like I mean, the terrain wasn't set up like this, but like zoned out an area where like I couldn't get around to like see him possibly, which was like absolutely the right thing to do because he knew that I was going to Epic Challenge him. I think, yeah, this is from my Chaos Knights game. There's not much to see left, but this is like the scenario I was describing earlier. We had like a Rampager here. Then there was a Squig Hog unit here that died, but he wanted to charge because it left him within an inch of the wall on purpose, hoping the Rampager would come up from like here to here and fight them. Because I knew that like, well, like these guys were like back here, I think, and getting to here on my turn might have been like kind of hard. But if I left like a juicy target for him to move up that he might want to throw his Rampager into, I could like, be within engagement range back and kill it probably. And I got something even better, which is like, yeah, the Rampager charged here. The Squig Hogs were like 1, 2, and then like 3 or something. Got like an 11 for its charge and had to move into base to base with them, like right there. At which point the Squig Hogs were like here, and it was like super easy for them to get into combat. Like my whole army basically just like charged that night. Mazarek I typically don't actually send into Titanic units. Even though he gets like +1 bonus damage, I feel like his damage is not consistent enough to be the guy who goes over there, and I need units in like other places. Like if I want something just like dead that's a vehicle, that's a job for the Squig Hogs. Mazarek's job is primarily just to not die. So I typically won't take a fight like that unless I don't have the Squig Hogs as an option. Yeah, here's just another photo of where a knight once was. Remember, yeah, like I was so dead at the end of day 3. I was just like so tired. Like I barely slept the night before. Yeah, I felt lucky, but I didn't get any real like nightmare matchups that day. Day 2, I felt like a little better rested. Yeah, he had some like, he had the Changeling and some like Nurglings in his list. I think most Chaos Knight players take demon allies at this point, and for good reason too. Yeah, and you get enough photos early on, but basically with knights, like if they play like aggressive at all, like I think he had like a couple carnivores over here or something, and like the rampager up, and he reserved some brigands too, which I think was a mistake, because they can typically just have enough board control at that point to like screen them out of coming anywhere useful. And if they're shooting me, it's just the same shooting they would have done if they were on the board turn 1. So I was happy when he reserved like a couple war dogs. I think he had like 3 more coming in, but like I basically got rid of like everything he had on the table before then, because he was like a little too aggressive with his like carnivores and rampager. I think the flash kits were able to kill like 2 brigands. They shot 1 on my turn without lethal hits, and then on his turn, I popped it and then overwatched it. And I think like when you do something like that as orcs and people just see you as like the melee army, instead of they're like losing things to you and shooting, it makes them like sweat a little and like be not sure how to play against you. And I mean, when I did that this game, he just like turned everything into flash kits, and tried really, really hard to like get rid of them, which is like not the worst decision, but I think he like overcommitted too hard here. And A, didn't go after or like target the squig hogs and stuff, but B, like had to move up a bit close to do that and like see them, because there was this wall in the way, and I think he needed like, I don't know, like a vantage point from like here to here or something. And yeah, that allowed for some like good counter charges. I think like that was how the knobs were able to get in. But yeah, he was like very hungry to get rid of the flash kits. Okay, so this is World Leaders. This is the game I lost. This is round 4. And I think it was partially, honestly, like because it's a matchup that I felt pretty confident into. I'd played against World Leaders, and they're like not that hard for Orks to deal with. I wouldn't call it like an easy game, but it's certainly not a bad matchup, and I think it's like slightly in the Orks' favor. So here's what I did wrong here. Usually, like a lot of some of the World Leaders lists I've played against before have like brigands, and the brigands make this a bit harder because you can't just outscreen them in melee. So what I did is like, my first few drops were like the big things you'd kind of expect. Like it was like, or well, it starts small, right? Like the Storm Boys and the Grots, like the obvious things. And then after that, I put down the like Squig Hogs and Mazrog and the trucks, and then left all this like screening stuff for VN, because I was hoping that he would deploy just like on the line and like rush towards me, which is what he did, but in a way that didn't work out for me. Like my thought with this, which I mean would have worked, is you have all this stuff like screening, and then if he bum rushes you, and like hopefully by the time he places it, he doesn't think that you're going to screen like this, and you have more units than him, right? So when you save these drops for last, they're like, oh, fuck, now there's like a giant wall of stuff. What do I do? And I saw he was deploying aggressively. So I was like, well, now he just fights the giant wall. And then I like clap back and table him the next turn. Or he's like not sure what to do now, and this is going to like trip him up. And what I forgot about is that in 10th edition, you can still pile in and fight with units that haven't fought yet if the original charge target they had was destroyed. I'm like, my brain's just still stuck on like 9th sometimes. So what happened here is I think like Angron charged like these grots. It was like this one grot left. And I was like, sure, whatever. He killed like more than I thought he would between like his plasma pistols and shooting. But this Malarfiend came up here and like charged the Storm Boys and killed them with tank shock. He got 6 wounds through, which is another thing I didn't expect to. I was mostly just calculating for screening with like his shooting. And what I did is I screened like really wide here. And like these Storm Boys aren't doing anything back here. If these 5 Storm Boys are right here, I'm pretty sure I win this game. And that's like the minutia that like screening in a really brutal melee matchup can sometimes come down to. Yeah, I think like these 5 right here like changed everything completely, because what was able to happen is Angron charges in, right? He charges the Grots. This guy, the Malarfiend, comes up here, tank shocks the Storm Boys, so they're gone now. And he's killed most of the Grots in shooting already. And then he had like, I don't know if it was like a Berserkers, there was one other unit that was in combat with the Grots. Picked them up and these 3 Squig Hogs. Then Angron was able to activate. Angron piled in from here into the big brick of Squig Hog Riders. And another thing that would have very easily prevented this scenario is if I think I put my guys like 3.9 inches back, if they were 4.1 instead, so we couldn't have piled in and fought them. That would have also changed the game completely, because like losing these 6 turn 1 is brutal. I also didn't WOG turn 1 because I was scared of like, he deployed pretty aggressively, but I was like, well, most good players, like if they see me WOG turn 1, they're just going to try and like bait that out and wait. In which case, like if I was in his position and I saw me wog turn 1, I would not have gone through with his plan still. I would have just like gone back a little and then like try to stay out of my charge range. So yeah, I was really worried about that. And yeah, this fucking guy just a little cheeky tank shock. I think it was this one actually. Like most of these go outside and shooting. And it was just like 1 or 2 like here left. That was the one that was like in contact with Angron. That was like pretty close to these guys. And like the 8-bound, I probably should have just let like choose something up. Like if I didn't have these bikes here, I mean, I could just like deploy 4.1 back and then be fine. But if for some reason I needed more screens than that, I probably could have like left these guys like over here and recognize that the 8-bound would be far enough that they wouldn't have been able to like charge in here still. Or if they would, it would have been like an 11 or 12, which is just like you kind of just accept that and that's what it is. Yeah, it really was just like me trying to play 9th edition 40k that made me lose this game. And then like I just couldn't like, I think we basically tabled each other. Or not, that's not true. We both killed a lot. But he still had this unit. I forget what they're called right now. But the little corn berserkers. He had like a unit here, and I was just like, I'm not gonna win on primary because like all I had was like the flash kits, and all the grots were dead, and I think I had like 2 trucks. So it was like 2 trucks and the flash kits, versus him having the reavers, if that's what they're called. Like these guys here and here. And this dude back here. At which point I was like, I'm not going to catch up on points. And then he brought back Angron on turn like 4, and I was like, yeah, it's like for sure over. So yeah, he just had too much of a point lead established early on because he was able to go first and like box me on my deployment zone, which I kind of counted for. But then I was like, well, I'll like push back and like if I have these quick hogs, I'll have enough to like fight him back surely. But I did not. I think like Angron killed all of them except for the knob. And then the knob did like a good amount of wounds back to him. And I was able to kill Angron in my turn 1 due to the flash kit shooting. But yeah, it was not enough. Like losing these 6 was like huge. I didn't quite have enough trading pieces to still fight him after. And then this was round 5 into Chaos Knights. I felt good after the Chaos Knights warm up. As I mentioned earlier, like my opponent played this like a lot more defensively. He kept these guys like way further back, which is what you're supposed to do. He like expected me to wog turn 2 and then moved stuff like just far enough that I probably wouldn't have been able to make it even with advance and charge because I was like over here or something, to which I just like didn't wog that turn and was like, well, I'm not gonna get you in combat and you're definitely just trying to bait it out, so I'll just sit on primary and know that I'm scoring way more points than you and see what you do. To which point he like panicked and then started moving like these guys forward again, at which point I wogged and then was able to. Because like the damage he was doing to all the stuff I had in objectives like wasn't quite enough that he was going to be able to like actually kill them all off. And once he realized that and got worried about like, well, can I actually like do this and hang back and like score enough points? Then he moved forward. The honest answer to that, like, I don't even know. He might have had to like, I mean, he definitely should have moved as much forward as he did. He should have maybe just moved like a unit or 2. But yeah, it is a tough question. Like if you're able to screen, if you're able to just like take control of all of these and your opponent can't really like shoot you off like at like an alarmingly fast rate, or you just have like good terrain set up. He was defender this game. I chose to be attacker. I wanted to roll. Then his first piece was this one, which is like the absolute right move to do. If you're doing player place terrain, you just want to deny like the midfield. But then I got this objective and that objective out of it after, and then was able to just like comfortably kind of sit here for the whole game and rack up points. This was the game where we did Sites of Power, which is a great mission for Orks. We have so many characters right now. Like, my list has so many characters, and I feel like people were taking Assassinated and Fixed, like, less often than I thought. And even then, like, if they are, but often not maxing it. Just because, like, Mazrog's pretty hard to kill, and, like, some of the other characters, like Badgerk, I can, like, hide really well if I need to. Even the War Boss is, like, sort of hard to get rid of. Like, him and his unit of knobs. Like, if my opponent takes Assassinate, once they, like, clear off a little corner, I'll often just, like, keep them there and then make it so that, like, they're just, like, scoring points the whole game and can't be interacted with. So yeah, I don't really mind giving up Assassinate as a fixed option as long as I'm not giving up 2 secondaries, because like my list doesn't give up Max Bring It Down, which is something like my Necron player saw and made him want to take tactical. He was planning on taking fixed at first, but we also didn't have a center objective, which makes things like teleport Homer really hard. And also, I mean, just like with my list being my list, he knew that like teleport Homer with like the Lich Guard was going to be like a bit harder than it normally was for him. A, because of like my melee screening, and then B, like I can actually like, it's pretty hard, but like with enough turns of combat, I can probably kill a Village Guard, which is a mistake. You still like should try not to kill a Village Guard if you are an Orc player, unless you can get rid of the character so they don't have the Feel No Pain anymore. But yeah, unless you have the CP for Epic Challenge, then you're not going to get rid of the character probably. So yeah, and the Transcendent Catan, I have no idea how anyone kills that. They're so hard to deal with. It was really funny seeing something that felt like even tougher than Mozrog. If I was a Necron player, I'd definitely have like one, if not a few. And yeah, those are my games. I do feel lucky in like matchup. I don't think there was like a matchup I was like really worried about, but there was certainly like some matchups I didn't want to get. Like Chaos running like 20 Possessed and Rhinos is annoying. Death Guard is like not so bad, I think, as long as I have flash kits, because I can like shoot them and interact with them in like other ways. But yeah, it's frankly just a matchup I haven't practiced enough, so I was like worried about it for that reason, didn't want to play it. And then like Votann, like the right Votann list of the right opponent could be really good too. Those were three I was like a little bit worried about. And like, I mean, Space Marines are like fine now, but it's not a matchup I'm like worried about, even though they're like a good faction. Yeah, I would say like more so of a 3, even though like I built my list to be able to like fight Space Marines too. Also defining like what a Space Marine is now is like kind of hard, because there's like a few builds that are like relatively different that are popping up. But yeah, I was thinking of like Dreadnought spam in Ironstorm specifically. White Scars sort of like hybrid list is good too. Yeah, in conclusion, Orcs are great right now. I really like them as a faction. They are sick at scoring still, just like they were pre-Data Slate. But I don't think you need all that redundant scoring anymore. I think you can actually hurt your opponent now, and that feels good, and is often more effective for secondaries than just tabling them is too. In that there was like a lot of kill-based secondaries, and I was already taking like Venobs and Mozrog for that reason previously. I think like dialing that up even more is like totally fine. So yeah, I hope this video helped, and I'm gonna make more. Check out the Art of War Down Under one if you want even more of me talking about orcs. And yeah, thanks for coming by. See you soon. Goodbye.